I could put you in the brig for what you've done, but I won't do it.
Recording is in progress. Can you believe it? No technical difficulty so far. This is nice. Two
Don't
owls,
say anything.
one pod. Don't say anything.
Don't jinx it, you son of a bitch.
Two owls, one pod. Al Ducharme here. My partner in crime, Al Romas, is in Clearwater, Florida. I'm in Los Angeles, Studio City to be exact. And every 25 podcast, we have a special guest, and we get excited about it because we get these big fish that come in, and we land them, and we can't believe it. And we have another one today. Al, who is our special guest?
Yes, we do. We have I'm going to say we have a legend. We have a legend in comedy, familiar to anyone who grew up in the 80s, the 90s, 2000s. You've seen him. Let's say The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, Late Night with David Letterman, Tonight Show with Jay Leno. I remember watching his HBO One Night Stand. There's a documentary called I Am Comic that shows him coming back into the stand-up world. It's great. There's a book, I Killed, stories from the road. He was on Married with Children, Roseanne, Designing Women. He's been in Beverly Hills Cop 2, Roxanne, but he's here with us on Two Owls, One Pod. Let's welcome Ritch Shydner.
Hey. Thank you, Al. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Al. Thank you, Al.
Thank you for being here. Yeah, man. Let's, I just want to open up with, to me, and I could be wrong on this, but I think of you as a DC comic for some reason.
Yeah.
Even though I think you're from Jersey. So
yeah, that's right. You're right on both counts. I was born and raised in New Jersey. I'm in my hometown right now, Pennsville, small town, southern part of the state. And I went to law school in DC, and that's where I started doing stand-up in January 1977. Everybody remembers that, right? Yeah.
Were you was that Garvin's or would that be?
No, Garvin's didn't open up until 79. So 77 there was nothing, and in terms of there were no comedy clubs outside of really New York City and LA, and then of course there were a couple scenes in Boston but there really was nothing. And he took me to a friend of mine. I thought I was funny, and my friend Howard Vine thought I was funny, and we needed a third opinion. So he took me to this coffee house that had, one of these classic talent nights. Yeah. And I prepared my 5 minutes or whatever to do. I don't know if we even knew to call it stand-up. He said, I'm just taking you someplace. I was always funny. I was being funny in law school, and he thought, I should do this. And
were you a fan of stand-up, like what you saw?
My God.
Sullivan and all those Tonight
shows.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd already seen live. Let's see. By then, I'd seen Carlin live. I saw Robert Klein live. I had not seen Steve Martin yet, but I'd seen Martin Mull live. I'd seen a bunch of stand-ups live, and of course, I was crazy about him. I would go through. I'm old. This is what I'm talking about, like this mid-70s. But I'm in law school, and I'd get the morning paper or the TV guide, and I'd just go through and see who was going to be on the talk shows that day.
Yeah.
The daytime talk shows, like Dinah Shore and Michael Douglas and Merv Griffin, and who's going to be, maybe to be a young comic on the Tonight Show. My favorite was Albert Brooks.
Wow.
I thought Albert Brooks was just something, and he is. Albert Brooks was, but any comic I was interested in watching.
Yeah. And then you just thought, I got to try this. Was that kind of like, I'll try it, get out of my system, or
no? I didn't have
you know what? I'm going to go this route.
I was always funny, and in college I really broke out, and I just was funny. I managed a bar for a year before I went to law school. I was managing a bar. Bartending, managing a bar is a perfect place to be a comedian. You got a captive audience. They're all they all want to laugh because they all want their drinks fast. They're all going to find you funny.
Yeah, the funny bartender, man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I was a great place, and there was no thought of doing it. I was in show business for 2 years before I realized I was in a business. Seriously. I seriously, I'm like going, I don't know. I'm doing in DC, and the Garvin's did open up, and these guys go, I met all these comics, coming down from New York City, Seinfeld, Mark Schiff, Jerry Seinfeld, Larry Miller, Gunnar Hirsch, Rick Overton, all these comics were coming down, And they go, well, you got to go to New York City. So I go, well, I got to go to New York City. I went to New York City, but it wasn't like, oh, how am I going to make money doing this? I mean, I was broke. I mean, it was
Yeah.
like, you know, it's not like I'll just have to have my trust fund sent up to New York City.
Oh yeah,
Wow.
we've had a taste of that ourselves. As far
Yes.
Yeah,
as
yeah,
being
yeah, yeah,
spaghetti,
yeah.
spaghetti 4 or 5 nights a week
Yeah, we
Oh,
and
started
just
early
hustling.
90s and missed the boom and then got sort of into the other boom. And now I guess there is
oh,
a boom. Now this seems like a boom
oh
again.
Yeah,
no,
yeah, I
this is
did.
this is
Yeah,
unbelievable now. Really, it's
I was
truly
going to ask you
unbelievable.
that now because of your history in the
Yeah,
comedy.
yeah.
How many booms do you think there have been since you've been in it? And what?
Three,
Yeah,
three.
three. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So this is
Yeah,
the third
absolutely.
one.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. And this
Hmm.
is biggest that's ever been. I wrote a thing about this. You know, like when we were young, we went to rock concerts. Every
Wow.
generation needs a gathering place, some
Hmm.
place where you can all get together. You look around the room or the theater or the stadium and go, "Look at us all. We're the same age. We're on the same
Right.
page." You know, we're looking at power. And for us, it was rock concerts, right? You go to
Right.
see Led Zeppelin, whoever.
Yeah.
And now it's comedy. Comedy's taking that place because music doesn't. It's not trustworthy. Are they lip syncing? Are they really playing their instruments? Are there tracks up there? But comedy's honest, and you see these comics are playing stadiums now, huge
And what I love
theaters.
is those guys, they're playing, not the stadium guys so much, but the big halls, 3,000 people.
Yes, huge,
And
huge.
the average person doesn't know who they are. That's what's amazing. It's a
But
comedy fans know them.
they
But if
they,
you go to
they
your, you know what I mean? A lot of them don't know who, yeah, I don't know, Mark Norman is.
I think they're
You
getting
think
their.
so?
He's
Yeah, they
breaking out
have
of
their
that,
accounts.
but
They have look. All old people don't know because we're out of pop culture. You know, we're
Maybe.
right,
Well,
this
this,
is me,
you look
social
at a
media.
People magazine. You look at the cover. You go, don't know that one. Don't know that one. Don't know that one.
right,
Don't know that one. Who's that? Who's
right.
They know. They know. They
Yeah,
know.
because it seemed
They,
like in
there's
the old days, if the big comics would be in People magazine, and now
you
it's
you
just social media.
you didn't have a rock star only one. There was only one. There's Steve Martin in the late
Right.
70s. That was it. He
Right,
was playing those kind of hockey arenas or basketball arenas,
right,
11, 12, 14,000 people. There was nobody else close to that.
right.
Nobody.
Yeah, I
I mean,
guess.
even the big names of that time were lucky if they played small theaters. Carlin, they were playing like largely they were playing a lot of colleges.
Right.
Fire,
Hmm.
the small
Yes.
theaters, not big.
Yeah, I saw Carlin at Westbury Music Fair, and
There
that was
you
the kind of
are.
venue he
Okay.
played. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
So
And then
yeah,
then he opened the door. I guess then Dice started doing those big venues as well
He
after
he
that,
came
right?
he came along after that. That's right. He started playing those big venues with the stolen material he had, and
Yeah, I've heard a few of those stories.
yeah. Well,
uh,
Now
those
well, let's
you're
those
go.
those rhymes didn't come out of thin air.
song
Uh-huh.
parody, basically.
Yeah.
Um, I did want
Let's.
to ask
Oh,
you
go
because
ahead.
you're primarily a writer. You have a lot of writing credits, and you run writing staffs, and you've written
Yeah.
several episodic episodes for various sitcoms and whatnot. How do you feel about crowd work? And that seems to be trending right now. I know Al has an open bar special crowd work, but Al's always done crowd work within his written
Ah,
material.
yeah.
But what do you think about the social media phenomena where everybody's making these crowd work
Well, I
specials?
say a couple things to the people who are making them. One, make sure you're actually clever and funny in your crowd work, okay, that you're putting up. Because a lot of times I see the crowd says something like, I'm dating my cousin and he's right here, and actually I'm having sex with her boyfriend, and they're getting laughs for their outrages, and the comics just up there going,
Right. They just
that's
repeat what
not
they're
that,
saying
yeah,
and they get the
It's
that's
Jerry
not
laughs. Yeah.
right.
Springer.
That's not
Yeah.
right.
Doesn't count.
Right, because the audiences are totally different today. Audiences generally want to be part of the show today, and in our
Yeah.
day, it was a crapshoot. I loved when audiences want to play.
Mm,
Back then, I love when they heckle me because they would always spin me in an area. They think, "Oh, we got him now." I go, "No, you just threw me. Turn over. I got material over here. I got material over there. Wherever you
Right.
send me, I got material." So I loved that. But that's largely what I see the crowd work today. And also, I'd say when you're doing the crowd work, don't put edits in your crowd work. Okay?
Right. Yeah.
Because I know
You're
you.
cutting
Because I
off.
know you. You go. So what's that? And then there's an edit. You go. Well, here's my crack response now. But
Yeah.
in real time, it was 3 minutes later. The guy finally figured out something to say.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Standing there quietly thinking.
Wheels are spinning. Please say something. Please say
Man.
something.
But no,
You know what?
really, look, it's great because anything that gets them, these reels and podcasts for comics today, it's unbelievable marketing tool. Really, truly unbelievable.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. I agree.
Nothing ever like it. Nothing.
No, no. But now let's go. I want to just keep going with you moved to New York now.
Yeah.
Now you're in New York. You stay in New York or you go into LA like everyone pretty quickly?
Oh no. When I'd already driven to LA in '78, I was clerking for a lawyer in South Jersey, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And he was expecting me to come out of law school and come work with him, be a junior partner. He says, "You got to figure out what you want to do." I said, "I want to go out to LA. I'd heard about the comedy store." He says, "Go." So I got in my car and I drove to LA from Jersey, and I went to the comedy store and I hung out there and I saw Richard Pryor performing.
Wow.
This is the summer of '78. And I saw these guys. The guy that comic that I really remembered out of all of them, besides Pryor, of course, and Robin Williams, which I'd seen, but was a guy named Tim Thomerson, just blew me away. He was powerhouse.
Hmm.
And so I thought I'm going to move to LA. And I cannot remember who it was, but I was staying with a friend of mine. She was living with a huge pot dealer out in LA, and he had primo stuff that I never even, only heard in lyrics of songs, Panama Red or whatever, Columbia Gold,
Yeah, exactly.
Acapulco Gold. I'd never heard. And so I was going to the store with the joints of this material and getting in anywhere I wanted to go,
Right.
and the store man who I was smoking a joint in the parking lot with I said, "I'm thinking about moving here." He says, "No, don't move here, man. I can't get on stage. I can't get on stage. And I work the door. I can't get on stage." So I went back and said, "Okay, I'm going to go to New York." Because I'd already met guys and I figured I could get stage time.
Right.
I knew.
Right.
I didn't. Nobody had to tell you, right? Nobody had to tell you the key to the whole thing is stage time. If
No.
you get it, you get better. If you don't, you don't.
Right.
It's pretty simple, yeah. And I think a lot of guys are looking for shortcuts, and I tell them that and they always seem very disappointed that it's like, oh fuck, I still got to do that even with my iPhone.
Yeah. We always thought, I was always looking for shortcuts. The Northwest Passage to better material, right? Always looking for better material. I don't know if you remember Mike McDonald, the Canadian comedian. Mike and I were great friends. We were best friends as soon as we met. So as soon as I met him in 1980, we go tripping on acid, right, in his apartment. And we laughed so hard all night long. We laughed. The next day we go, we got to do that again. And this time we're going to tape it. We're going to tape it. And then we're going to have all this material, right? So, we same thing. There's 5 or 6 people falling out, laughing. The next day, we get up. We got this boom box he had, with a cassette tape. We go, all right, here we go. Everybody gather around, divvy up the material. Here we go. And the first person you hear the tape, somebody goes, "Hey, can I open the window?" And people laugh for 15 minutes. They go, "Okay, all right. Yeah. Who wants the 'Can I open the window' bit? That's yours. Whoever wants it."
I'm going to close with that.
Yeah.
Now you're in New York because I think I saw you the first time and now my timing could be all wrong on this. Had you done Tonight Show before you did the One Night Stand on HBO?
Oh yeah. I did. Here's my chronology in terms of television. I did cable access in New York City, which was very funny. We got you could do anything you want. But then I did Evening at the Improv in the fall of '81. Evening at the Improv.
Oh, okay.
Then came out. Then I moved. Carol Leifer and I were married, and we moved to Los Angeles like January of '82 because she got a pilot. She got a TV pilot with Barry Levinson's show called Toast to Manhattan, I think it was called. Her and Gilbert. So we moved to LA. Then I did another Evening at the Improv. Did a couple of Merv Griffins, and then I did my first Tonight Show August of '84. And so then I started, and then I got in trouble with my second one, and then I did my third one in '86, and then I did like 12 more before I did, 12 more with Johnny, and
Wow.
I did it. So I had my evening, the one night stand was '89. So I've been doing Tonight Show and Letterman. I've been doing Letterman. I started doing Letterman around 80, 85, 84, something like that. 86, something like that.
Can I ask you, when you first get the notification that you're going to be on the Tonight Show, are you out of your mind with excitement, or is it a nervous creative time? Is it It's pressure, or you feel like I earned this. I'm going to nail this.
I felt like I was ready to earn it. I got great advice when I got out there. I think it was Leonard told me, don't bother Jim McCauley. Jim McCauley was the Tonight Show booker for stand-up comics, young stand-up comics.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, do not bother him. Do not go up and talk to him. Do not try to be friends with him. I stayed away from him. I saw people kamikaze in the conversations he was having, and and so Sam Kennison and I saw 84, the Olympics were coming to LA, and I said, this is going to be horrible for stand-up. I knew it. And so I said, I'm going to New York. And Sam Kennison said, I'd never been to New York. And so I said, come on, Sam, we'll go to New York together. We went to New York together, and I was performing on the improv stage in New York, and Macaulay had come to New York because it was terrible for stand-ups. They had all these tourists who couldn't speak English as a first language in the rooms,
Right.
And it was so he said, you're ready to do the Tonight Show. Let's talk about it. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'm ready. You're right, I'm ready.
Wow. Okay.
I thought I was ready, but I got so nervous. I broke out in shingles before my first Tonight Show.
Oh my God.
Shingles. Now I know that the alcohol, cocaine I was doing had something else.
I was going to say, I don't know.
That might have helped too.
Yeah, a little bit.
But I walked out to do the Tonight Show the first time. I had medicated pads on my butt cheek, my right butt cheek, and my thigh, because that's where it broke out.
Right here, right there.
Oh yeah.
Now you said there was something. What happened the second Tonight Show? Can we get into that a little?
I was able to stop drinking and doing drugs for a few days before my first one. Second one got a little tighter on the schedule, a little tighter.
Wow.
The night before I did the Tonight Show, Kennison and I were hanging out.
Uh-oh.
And that meant there was trouble. And he said, this is a really safe set you're doing. You got edgier stuff than this. Why don't you do that bit you're doing now about Jesus talking to his agent? Sam and I had gone to see this band called Striper. Have you ever heard of them? They
the
were
Christian rock band.
Right.
Yeah,
They were
remember
the first
them?
one. Yeah, they dressed like bumblebees.
Right.
So we go see them, and the lead singer comes out and says, Jesus was the first rock and roller. And I just went, wow, they just put the Son of God in showbiz. Let me see what we can do with that. So I had a whole thing about Jesus tour jackets, Jesus roadies. And then I had Jesus talking to his agent. It was a bit, couple-minute bit, and Jesus talking to his agent. You got to get me out of the hills and valleys. I'm dying out there. Book me into the temple. That's where the money is. Hey, Jesus, you kind of forget that I had you last year in the temple on open Messiah night. What do? You walk in, you knock over the money changer's table. I can't get your book back in there. You got to work up some things. You know what I mean? Work it up. Look at Moses. 40 years in the desert. 40 years in the desert before he broke big. 40 years.
40 years.
That's great.
Something. All right. Nail me to a cross. Nail you to a cross. That's a good closer. Work on that. Well, I go in a Tonight Show, and then I'm trying to tell Jim McCauley I need to do this as my closer instead of what we had planned. He says, you ain't doing no Jesus. So then I talk him into let me do Barney. A guy's name was Barney Clark, I think. He was the first guy to have an artificial heart.
Oh, okay.
Remember that artificial heart?
Yeah. Yeah.
He was big in the news. So I had a joke saying that, they said he's hooked up to an 800-pound machine for the rest of his life. They said it will affect his social life. I said, it's got to affect his bowling game. No doubt about that.
Right.
So then I did a whole big bit on the defibrillator paddles, a couple of jokes on that, right? Well, Johnny Carson was a 4-pack-a-day smoker with a morbid fear of heart attacks. He hated that material, man. So the first time I get on stage, they hand me a beer. They go, stand over here. Johnny wants to say hello to you when the show's over. The second time I come behind the curtain, Macaulay drags me into my little dressing room, man. He says, don't come out. No matter what you hear out here, don't come out. And he shuts the door. I hear yelling. I hear arguing.
Wow.
And then a few minutes later, Macaulay comes in. Johnny yelled at him and yelled at other people. He goes, it's safe for you to go. Go to the parking lot, get your car, and go. It's like he said, not getting you back on the show. You're done. And I got sober, and Macaulay. And there's a whole nother long story, man. Even how I got back on, but I got sober and I got back on.
Yes. Wow. Did they air that set? Did you?
Oh yeah, oh
Okay.
yeah, oh yeah.
Okay. Great.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah.
Yeah,
They
because
did.
now, like, oh, they'll cut something and put another guy in there, and
No, they
that's good.
they aired it, but when you come back, you see Johnny. And now you know what I mean. It's like Johnny had three signs he would give you. One was wave you over, just wave you
Mhm.
over, or he'd give you this, which meant great job, but go back behind the curtain. We'll see you next time. And
Mhm.
if you looked over at Johnny and he wasn't looking at the comic, he was just looking at the camera, tapping his pencil.
Yeah.
He's tapping that pencil, man. You're dead.
Oh
And
wow, that's
he has got a smile on his face. He's tapping the pencil. We'll be right back. That guy, he won't be right back,
He-
but we'll be right back.
but you were able to
wow.
get back 10 more times after that?
You
Is
know
that the
what's
count?
amazing? You want to hear this? This is, I think, is a great story. If you got time.
Sure.
So Macaulay sees me after about a year. I'm a year sober. He says, "You're totally different now. I want to get you back on Tonight Show. This male female stuff you're doing, this relationship stuff is great. So go do a Merv Griffin. It's like a rehab assignment for a pitcher. Go to the minor leagues, throw a game, show you're okay, get back to the majors, right?" I
Yeah.
said, no problem. So it gives me a date. I go do Merv Griffin. Les Sinclair, the guy who books the on the Merv Griffin show backstage, is telling me like, "Hey, I got to tell you, there's a whole Jewish audience out there. Whole room is nothing but old Jewish people from a retirement home." I'm like, why is he telling me this? There's nothing in my act. It's like, no, I don't always tell me this. Well, I found out a couple of minutes later. We go behind the curtain. Diane Cannon, the actress, is out there. She's promoting a TV movie she did called Jenny's War. And Merv Griffin goes, "This is very serious stuff. Let's see the clip of this." And they show a clip, and she's now in a death camp being beat up by Nazis. I mean, black booted Nazis, okay, are beating her up. And she's crying and screaming. And then they cut back to Merv and he goes, "Ooh, that was perfect. Let's bring out our next entertainer."
Comedy.
That's
Blonde
awesome.
hair, blue eyes. I might as well have goose stepped out onto the
No
stage.
kidding.
Comes the jokes.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, man.
I bombed Al.
Uh,
I bombed every joke. Nothing. I looked out. They were in shock. I saw tattoos glowing. They were
Wow.
out. And Jerry Seinfeld had said, if you ever drop a joke, just look at the camera straight ahead, nod, smile, and they'll put the laughs in later. I did that for every joke. I'm like,
Wow, that's a nice tip.
I mean, death,
Yeah.
nothing. And I kept thinking, I got to run or go break into some crowd work, try to shake it up. I said, "No, I'm just going to do this set the way I just did the whole set." And I
Yeah.
walked. I thought, I'm toast. I'm toast, man. Absolute toast.
And then again, you came back.
Well, it's really weird. First of all, Les Sinclair apologized to me. He's like, I tried to get her to let you go first. She wouldn't do it. So couple days later, Macaulay approaches me in the Improv in LA and says, "I heard about the Merv Griffin, man. That was very professional. You're ready to come back." And he gave me a date for he said, "No, nobody could have done anything with that crowd. Don't worry about it."
Right.
And then I got my date on the Tonight Show.
Wow.
Wow. And now you go to, because I remember, I knew who you were, the Tonight Show. Then you popped up on Married with Children. And I remember watching, you were in the first season, I believe.
Yeah, I was in the pilot. I was in the first 7 episodes. Again, this is like I won the battle and lost the war. I beat out, I went to, when you go to, back then we would go to, they say, "You're going to network," which means the network and the producers meet for the first time to see the last 3 candidates for that role. And I'd been there earlier with Woody Harrelson and some guy named Timothy Threadgill, who ultimately did a documentary called Grizzly Man. If you ever want to see a great documentary, it's unbelievable. So there are 3 of us, 3 blondes, to replace the coach. I went to network for Cheers, didn't get it, and now I'm going to network just a few months later for this show on a network that not even existed yet.
Right.
They were like, "This is going to be on a new network." I'm like, okay. And
84?
So,
Are we doing 84-ish, 85?
no, this is 86, 87. I think it was the fall of 86, and then we shot in, and they had to reshoot the pilot in 87 because they got new kids. But anyway, so I think it was 86 in the fall.
Okay.
Mhm.
So we're sitting in there, the 3 actors were sitting in the hallway, and then the 2 producers come in, Michael Moy, short black guy, and a tall Jewish guy, Ron Levitt. I can't remember his name. Ron Levitt. So they come in, and the actor across me jumps up and goes, hugs Michael Moy. And Michael Moy's like, "Hey, you're gonna love LA. Wife's got your roommate." It was his best buddy. It was one of his best buddies from theater days or something.
Uh-oh.
And I go, "Oh, it's over. It's done.
Yeah.
It's done." And the other guy, he looks like Lee Harvey Oswald after Ruby shot him. He's gut, man. So I was going to leave, and they said, "You're in first." I go, "I didn't care. I never went in an audition like that where I go, it's over. It doesn't matter." So I
Mhm.
just made fun of everything. I made fun of them. I made fun of the fact there's no network. I made fun of everything. And of course, later they're like, "No, you got to give this role to the funny guy." Even Michael Moy couldn't get it for his friend, so
Hmm.
he hated me and hated the role as soon as I
Oh,
won it.
right.
Is that
Yeah.
how is that
Yeah, that's how it
happened?
should. Yeah,
They
seven
moved you out?
episodes,
Yeah.
seven episodes, and one. And the system was on Friday, I'd get the script, I'd work with it or with a coach, acting coach over the weekend, and come in Monday for the reading. Right, one Friday, I don't get a script. I
Uh-oh.
call my agent. He goes, "That's a delivery problem." I call you right back. Calls me right back. "No, it's not a delivery problem. You've been fired."
Wow.
I had a
Ah,
7 to 13. My contract was 7 to 13. As soon as I did seven, they dropped it.
Right. But
wow.
isn't that
Yeah.
common? The first season
Hmm.
of a sitcom, they make so many adjustments
Oh
and
yeah, no, they made
chemistry
it.
and
Look,
yeah.
first of all, my role got smaller as soon as they came back.
Yeah, I
So
don't
here's what
remember.
happened: they had the two kids, right? And they didn't like the kids. They didn't like the way they looked, so they recast it. So what's her name? They played Kelly. I can't think. Christina
Applegate.
Applegate.
Yeah.
Well,
Applegate.
Christina Applegate, they hire her like say December, right? And they shoot those reshoot those scenes. The kids are involved. They come back in like February. She has blossomed.
Ah, yeah.
Mm.
So as soon as she walks out the first time, the audience, the men in the audience go crazy.
Ooh.
And
Right.
and you could see the producers going, "We got a jailbait character here," and that's what they did.
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
Yeah.
they changed the focus because he was supposed to be like most of the time in his job, and now they
Right.
went the family. Family
Yeah.
became.
Yeah. They never. Yeah. It was just Al in the store every now and then
Yeah, that's right. That's
selling
right.
shoes to some sexy woman and
But that always changed. Even
oh,
Family Ties. It wasn't supposed to be about Alex, the character of Alex. It's supposed to be
Right.
right.
Meredith Baxter, right?
Right.
Bernie, whatever her name.
Yeah.
Fonzie took over Happy Days. Urkel took
Yep.
over that show.
Right. Yeah. There's a history of it. Definitely.
Yeah.
Let me ask you. You're doing so. Now you're done with Married with Children. You were the relationship guy. I remember stand up. You always men, women, men, women. But tell me a little bit about Canyon Man. I remember
Canyon Man. Oh,
Canyon
yes.
Man. I am Canyon Man. That was that was
I quit.
big.
I quit smoking. Right. And I quit smoking, and it's like again, it's 87 or somewhere around in 88, something. I quit smoking, and I had two things. I got in a fist fight with two car parkers on the street, and then I came up with Canyon Man down at Igby's. I just was screwing around. You just screwing around.
Uh-huh.
And I bought this Jeep Cherokee, and I was mocking myself, the fact that a Jeep Cherokee 4-wheel drive in Los Angeles,
Right.
and and so and one of the bits, part of it was with power door locks and automatic door locks. Automatic door locks. It was a new feature. It was a new thing then. And I go, "Doors are open. Try to get in. Too late. Canyon Man is safe and secure." So the first time I did that
Yeah.
at the Improv, Jerry Seinfeld comes over to me and goes, "Hey, I was trying to break the code on those power door locks.
Yeah.
You beat me to that one."
Oh,
That's great.
yeah.
In its infancy, that joke, how a bunch of comics would say, "Oh, what can I do?" And then, like you said, you broke the code first. How exciting is that?
Excited, very excited. That's all. I mean, that's what I live for. Are you kidding me? That's the
Mhm.
greatest thing for a comic because that's what it is. Something new comes out, and who's going to break the code first? And then everybody's
Right.
going to,
When you
knockoffs.
have when you have a bit like that, how long do you keep it? Like, guys now turn things over every year.
Oh,
And you know what I mean? It's crazy. Every year they have a new act. I don't know how they're doing it, but whatever. But Canyon Man, how long do you still do it? Do you bring it up in today?
no, no, it's not relevant
No.
at all today because SUVs are so ubiquitous. I
Right.
mean, it was the SUVs were new. That like I said, the power door locks were new.
Right.
It all was different. I got bored with it quickly. I
Mhm.
did it on the Tonight Show,
Mhm.
and I was kind of done with it. And then people would yell it out. They'd yell
Oh
it out,
wow.
and I would treat it like I go. I've done a jukebox up here, man. Put hey Canyon Man K17. Let's And I didn't like it. I
It
didn't
was one
like
of
to
those
be.
things though that really grabbed. I would just remember my friends. We all were like Canyon Man. I'm Canyon. And in my mind, you've done it for years. And then meanwhile, probably
No,
no.
no, it's
Amazing.
just like, it just
Hmm.
it was a voice, it was an attitude.
Right.
It was so funny. The South Southern California Jeep dealerships
Mhm.
approached my agent. They said this would be a great, because they had that guy Joe Isuzu was selling these
Right,
Isuzus.
right.
They were
Mhm.
junk, and they were selling. They said these guys, all these young guys in an advertising. This will be great, So they bring me into, and they bring a big guy out from Detroit or whatever, one of the top guys. They said, we got this character here, man, and it's going to sell some Jeeps, and they goes, all right. And he didn't get it. We did it, and they're
What?
all laughing. He goes, yeah, they did. They're all laughing. The secretaries are laughing. In a big boardroom, like there's
Yeah.
20, 30 people there. And I do the thing, and I'm still in the room, and he goes, "Ah, you're
Yeah.
making fun of Jeeps. You're making fun of it. You can't do that." And they go,
Embrace it.
yeah, they go, I don't think he understands how humor works.
Wow. Yeah. It's seemingly made for that. That's too bad. Al and I do a lot of cruises. I want to know. I've never. Yeah, Al, you do a lot of cruises. We both do. All right. And I'm wondering. I'm sure you've been out there. I don't know anything about if you have, and where have you worked, and what do you think of it?
Yeah. Well, I as soon as I didn't have to do them anymore, I'm not doing them. That's what I think.
Well, I hope to get to that point.
That's what we're working toward.
I hope you do too.
My bank account has a smile, but the rest of me not so much.
Yeah. It's a complaining culture out there. You know that, first of all. And secondly, it's like so many restrictions. And I'm not a guy that works the line, I'm not an edgy guy, but any kind of restrictions, any kind of things that happen. I had a joke. I said, and it was a very simple joke going, my son asked me to explain God. I said, how am I supposed to explain the creator of the universe? I can't explain how you pull a Kleenex out. Another one pops out right behind it, right? It's a simple little joke. And they got complaints. And I had to go meet these women. I had to meet these women who were telling me I was making fun of God. I said, no, I'm making fun of me. I was making fun of me and my inability to, and they were they wouldn't even accept my apology. I go, what am I doing? How many times in the comedy clubs ever sit the next day and have to explain a joke to people,
No.
But that's the ships, because the people complain, they get things, they know they complain, they get another day on their drink package or whatever the hell it is.
Right.
I didn't, and I used to joke, and I'd go on stage and go, thanks a lot for coming out tonight. I know you're had a lot of entertainment options like staring at open seawater. So thanks.
I'm using that tomorrow night.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Do it. You're welcome to it. You're welcome to it.
What was the cruise line? What were you working? Were you working like some high-end cruise?
I worked only that. Look, Don Casino. They're a great agency for me. They were great for me, and they could only put me on the high end. I started with Princess, did the Holland America, then it was right into Oceana and Regent and Crystal and all these ones. They just were great. Seabourn, they were all great. I mean, I love there's no complaint about that. I didn't like to travel anymore. I got to look. I said, look, man, how many years I think I got? I don't want to be out there, away from my wife. And
right.
There's other things I want to do. That's
definitely. At least for Royal, just so you know, like Royal Caribbean now has comedy clubs.
Yeah.
They started all that. All adult.
You can do pretty much whatever now.
Yeah.
But
I know that.
So that's improved.
I know it's all changed. I know.
But we went through what you went through before this happened, and we know.
Right?
So this is actually a little bit of a relief in some ways. But getting back to you spending a lot of time away from your wife and all that, I'm thinking of that stuff now too. The being separate.
You liked being away from Bernie.
Well, I wasn't finished.
Oh, okay. Continue.
Yes, but
is there a way you can be away from her without going to sea?
I wish.
I'd like to be home alone.
Yeah.
And so the murder plan began.
Yes. Now, Rich, while you're not off you're off the ships, whatever, you're home. Is that how the history of comedy started? You're doing.
No.
You have a million clips. They're great. I love them. The little minute, 2 minute. And I saw the other night you were in I forget where, Comedy Cabaret. You had a
you do
it live. So you do a live version.
Well, I actually started around 20 years ago. I was friends with Phyllis Diller, and as Phyllis got older, she was really into the history of it. and she had all these great stories about vaudeville comics, and we'd have lunches, and we both thought Mark Twain was the first guy. And then I was reading Twain, and I read an essay about the funniest guy he ever saw, Artemus Ward, who turns out to be the first stand-up. And I just started digging into it, and more I got into it, more I enjoyed researching it. Then I was going to write a book on the history of stand-up comedy, and then Cliff Nesteroff, who gave me his book before he printed it, he gave me a galleys to look at because I was posting stuff back then or whatever. I read his book, and I thought, well, I got a different take on it. I got a different idea, and I disagreed with him about certain events and all that, who the first stand-up was and all that. So I was going to write a book, and then I go, man, this is feeling like a encyclopedia. It's I can't make a funny book about stand-up comedy right now. My wife goes, why don't you just go on stage and do it? So I created a show probably around 2008, 2009. I started working on this show, and I want to take back every complaint I just said about the cruise ships, because it was necessary that I did this on cruise ships first all the time.
Oh,
Every
wow.
cruise ship I went out at, I go, hey, you need a lecture in a date? They asked me one time, hey, do you have anything you can talk about? Because we had an extra seat. You know what happens.
Right.
And we need somebody to lecture. I go, yeah, I do. I got something I want to talk about. So I did
Okay.
this show, and it went over out there. The age group was right.
Right.
And I do a Q&A, and they ask about this comic or that comic. And so that's how it started. And I just really got into it. Every one of those videos you see me put up now, and I put up 70 so far. I'm going to probably put up at least another 100. Every one of those videos is not in the show. And nothing I'm putting up now is in the show.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
There's
so
I could
much
do
to pull from. Wow.
I could do easily 4 hours. If somebody wanted to do a documentary, right? Multi episode, I could do 4 1 hours. I've already sketched those out. Already see there's 4 1 hour different episodes I could do on stand up easily.
I smell franchise here. I smell defending the caveman. Have like 6 comics doing it in various
Al
places.
and I will go on the road. We'll go on the ships.
You'll get your dividend every month.
We'll talk about Lord Buckley on the seas.
You will find out there are literally tens of people across the country who want to hear this.
Yeah, I'd never heard of Lord Buckley, and I got fascinated by that guy.
Yes.
I started Googling and went down a couple of rabbit holes. It's like, how do I not know that name ever? What a character.
I have 6 videos already done about him. I think I posted 2.
Yeah.
He was a guy, one of those guys that saw no difference, Al, between being on stage or off. He didn't see any difference, man. He was wild. He was just a funny guy. I don't know, there's so many stories about the guy. He was just a wild guy. And he influenced, Lenny Bruce directly. They worked together. Lenny was trying to change what he's doing. And he works with Lord Buckley, he was a true winger. They called him a winger back then. Like, you just wing it up there. He was an improvisational guy. He influenced Jonathan Winters. He influenced, the lineage from him is huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
So where's Will Rogers Jr. or Will Rogers falls in?
Will Rogers was first superstar comic, the first comic who broke out of vaudeville. Back then, vaudeville, right? Mm-hmm. You had a 5-6 minute act you did, and if you got to be a headliner, 17 minutes was tops that you would do as a headliner. 17 minutes. So Will Rogers got so big, he just broke out and did his own tour. He's the first guy to do his own 4-wall tour, right? Where he would just do the whole show. And he was a superstar comic back then. He did political material. Republicans and Democrats both laughed because they were cutting up a huge pie. And it is the 1920s is when he really made his mark, right? And the 1920s, the roaring 20s. And he did political material. He wrote material. When he died, he had the #1 radio show in the country when that mattered. He had the #1 newspaper column in the country that mattered. He had #1 movie that mattered, and he had a #1 draw on the road. He was the top box office draw. Al Jolson might have been up there close with him, but he drew. He was huge.
Wow.
The country flagged at half mast when he died in 1935. There's a statue of him. There's no statue of any entertainer in DC but him.
Forgive me, was that the plane crash?
Yeah, up in Alaska.
Alaska, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So he was like 52 or 53 at the time. I think.
Wow.
God, yeah. There's so many. Who would you say you've worked with?
Oh,
Everybody.
here's a Will Rogers. Wait. I'm going to cut you off.
Okay.
Here's a Will Rogers joke that I still hear today. Comics
All
stuff.
right.
Yeah, I've heard comics do this on the ships. I've heard comics do. Kip Adada used to do this joke. He said, when I die, I want to die in my sleep like my grandfather, and not those other people kicking and screaming in his car."
I think I've heard. I think I heard that 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I heard
It
it
came
a
up
few
to
years-
the guy.
That's Will Rogers.
Oh,
Wow,
Jesus
imagine
Christ.
that 100 years ago.
Yeah.
A 100-year-old joke.
Yeah, because what he did was he was breaking the code then because the cars were new. Cars were
Sure.
he's
Mhm.
they
It was like
were breaking up. Right.
Like the automatic locks.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh,
Too
wow.
late.
Yeah, the sound effect was very important in that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I'm very familiar with that.
Uh,
I'm a sound effects guy, but yes, absolutely.
I was telling Al the other day, I worked on a ship last week, and we were in the theater, and the guy I was working with, some people came in late, and he did the "Can I buy you a watch" line.
Ooh.
And I'm like, dude, what are we?
Okay.
We're 2025. What do we do? You can't do that line.
I'm going to give you whose that line was. You ready?
Originally, yeah.
Fred
please.
Allen. You ever hear of Fred Allen?
Fred Allen. I
The
got
name, I
Allen.
don't know anything about him.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. This is interesting. Fred Allen was huge. He was another guy in the 20s, huge. And then he had a radio show. His show was what became the Daily Show. He had a political comedy show on the radio, right?
Wow.
And he was a top writer. I mean, he was one of those comics back then. Most of those comics back then, they were all joke books or they just passed jokes around, right? He wrote his jokes. So he had a lot of great jokes, and he was very good, and he had a lot of funny off the cuff stuff, and that was one of them. People would walk in late, he says, "Can I get you anything like a watch?" So there's another 120-year-old joke.
I know.
It's
But
just
to people
unbelievable.
that are 35 years old, they're like, "Oh my God,
Yeah,
this guy's a
oh my
genius."
God. Oh
Yeah.
my God.
He just said it off the cuff.
They don't hear me yelling "fuck you" from behind the curtain, but
I know.
That's
Brutal.
hysterical.
Was there anyone, Rich, you started with or around like you thought, "Wow, this guy, holy shit, he's gonna be big," and then just never really heard from again?
Al
Couple of
Romas.
reasons.
Hey,
A couple of guys,
here?
Al. A couple of guys that didn't make it big because they didn't live long enough. Now, Bill Hicks would have been bigger. You
Right.
know that, Bill Hicks. But I got to say, two guys, Ronnie Shakes. You know Ronnie Shakes.
Yeah, I know the name, and I've heard
Ronnie-
some stories. And
Unbelievable, great writer. He was a one-liner writer. I got a couple of stories about him, but he wrote and Rodney used some of his stuff. I mean, Rodney bought some of his stuff. He had jokes. I've been in therapy for 10 years, and last week my therapist said something that brought tears to my eyes. He said, "No habla inglés." He had a million. Man. He was so good. He said, "I wanted to kill myself. So I went down the beach to drown myself, but I knew it wasn't serious. I brought a towel." So he was great, and he died of a heart attack at 40 in Cleveland.
Wow.
And get this, here's a classic,
Cleveland.
right? So midweek, he dies of a heart attack. They don't pay him for the whole week. They don't give his wife the whole week.
Oh, shit.
Only for the shows he did.
Wow.
He only did 3 shows. What do you want from us?
Hey.
Yeah. You ask like comics
Oh, my
at the club
God.
owners when they get the power, right?
Wow.
After the
and
funeral, I'm taking you to court.
and then I'd say Dennis Wolfberg, if you remember. Dennis
yes.
Wolfberg.
Yeah.
Then, most comics, you get a feel for the comic. You see them early on. There's not many that had the growth curve that Dennis did. Because when I first saw him, when I moved up to New York in '79, he was okay. He was good. He was serviceable. I mean, he had some funny bits, and he had but his closer was he'd sing American Pie. He'd get out a guitar and he'd actually just lead the audience and sing along American Pie. And then a couple of years later, I was in LA, and somebody says, "Hey, we're going down to Igby's. This Dennis Wolfberg's just in town, and he's really funny." I go, Well, I saw him. He's funny. He's not really funny. I go down there. He blew me away. His material had upgraded. His was sharper material. He had sharp material, but he was really sharp. And he had just nailed it. Whatever it was, performance wise, he had a little tongue flick that was kind of funny.
Right.
A little tongue flick. And
Yeah.
he did an eye pop. And white guys on an eye pop don't work as well normally because we don't have the contrast on the white of the eye and the darker skin works better, right? His work, man. He worked an eye pop, which is where you're surprised at your own jokes. It's great, he just had it, man. He was killing, man. I mean, I'm telling you, he was. I don't know what exactly he was going to do, where he was going to do it, but he was going to be a real force, and he died early.
Wasn't he a teacher at the same time for most of his career? He was like a high school teacher.
No, by the time I saw him, I don't think he was. No, that was Lenny Schultz. Was always Lenny Schultz remained a teacher.
Lenny was still a gym teacher,
right. But Dennis, by the time I saw Dennis, I think he was done with it, and he was he was full time comic at the comic strip was his home place.
Yeah, I saw him at Rascals.
A nice guy.
He was a great guy. But I saw him at Rascals, and I used to work West Orange, and I never heard the laughs that loud. It was a Friday night. Wolfberg was really killing, not just killing, but as people say, it was loud there. No, the difference. The difference. When guys go, that killed. I go, you killed it. I've heard guys when you go, somebody's going to get hurt. Somebody's going to get hurt laughing here. Right.
You better let up on him.
That's what it was. 100%. Yeah.
I opened up for him in Rhode Island at the Comedy Connection, and he just murdered.
Yeah.
He was such a high watching it too,
And I got one other thing to say. Have you ever been to any comic memorials? They normally go off the rails. They go off the rails. Comics start talking about themselves, and they go
really.
Comic memorials, man. They can be funny in a darker way than expected.
Right.
But his memorial was the most beautiful thing. I mean, and it was really it was. I don't even want to say this. It was all funny. It was respectful, and the whole. I don't think of anybody that the whole comedy community was out there. I mean, really was out there, and it was, his Hiram Caston was his best friend, and Hiram spoke, and I think maybe his manager George Shapiro, and that's about it. I don't remember. Maybe Reiser spoke. Maybe 3-4 people spoke, but it was very respectful, very funny, and it was a lot of tears. I'll tell you what happened. I'll tell you this. So they're lowering him into the grave. He had twin sons out there, like twin 5-year-old sons, right? One of them screams, "Daddy, don't go!"
Oh, jeez.
Right, exactly. You imagine that. I mean, tears shot out of my eyes.
Yeah.
And everybody was out of breath. I mean, I remember everybody's. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It was incredible. And his wife was great. Jeannie McBride. She was great. But anyway, I think he would have been bigger. He would have been big. That's
was she a comedian also? Why do I think
she was? She did warm up acts. She did warm up for TV shows for a long time, to be a mother and to stay in town. I mean, she couldn't go on the road.
Right.
I think they had 3 kids or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, but he was the guy. Definitely, I would say him.
That's a great answer, because that's like a forgotten, in a sense, guy, and I agree completely. Yeah.
And then the love and appreciation and respect for the guy. Obviously, everybody turning up at the memorial. Yeah.
You and anybody, you can always find some. You won't have to look too far to find somebody that's got to swear about me where I'm an asshole. You have no stories like that with Wolfberg. None.
I just want to touch upon the you writing for television and still being a stand-up. Was there a transition period where you just kind of did more of the writing than stand-up? Did you always keep your toe in the water?
Eventually, you just kind of start moving yourself away from it. And by the late 90s, I'm not doing stand-up anymore. I just wasn't doing it. I may host something, a benefit or something, but I wasn't doing it anymore. And that's just it. Part of me, and this is something you guys I know you relate to. When I first started, all I wanted to do was get the laughs. That's all I cared about, right? It's all you care about. And then you get in the game for a while and you're going like, I want things. And you're getting them. And then you see, well, these guys are getting more than I'm getting. I started noticing people are flying by you, and I started, I'm not getting enough. I should be getting more. And when I came into it, I started getting bitter. Wow. And that's a bad place to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was something I had to work through. I had to work through that.
It's good you did. I mean, that's kind of when I was younger and starting, I would be in green rooms with these older guys, and
Yeah.
I couldn't believe how I thought it was gonna be fun and games back there, and they're so fucking bitter. I just wanted to go out and kill myself. I was like, fuck it,
They're
have a
like,
good
why am I
set,
still
asshole.
here?
Yeah. What am I doing at
And we have big
Rascals for
smiles on our faces,
$300?
like, hi, I'm opening up for you.
What can I say about you, sir? I worked with Pat Cooper at Rascals. I go, what do you want as an introduction? And he started yelling at me. He goes, what the fuck do you think? And I go, I don't, what? He goes, why do you think they're here? They're not here to see you. Bring me up. Pat Cooper, that's what you say. I was like, oh, Jesus. All right, relax.
I had some interactions with him too, but he let you know at one point he was busting your balls on purpose. He was testing you out. I remember
meanwhile, he was 70 wearing leather pants. I mean, come on, Pat.
I do remember in Boston though, there was a plethora of food, like shrimp cocktail. It was just all this food that's going to go to waste. And he goes, feed these animals that are opening up. Don't waste this food. And he looks at us and goes, eat the fucking shrimp. And we're howling because this guy, it's Pat Cooper.
There's, and I would like to see the dateline on it, but I know Pat was always, I saw a thing he did with Tom Snyder once when he was angry.
Right.
He did like this from the 70s, maybe, or
it's on
early
YouTube.
80s.
Anyone check it out.
Right.
It's great.
Yeah, it's funny. But those guys like Sam Kinison, you talk about people who are game changers. He was a game changer. Everybody got angry. Everybody realized that you could use anger and comedically, which we weren't doing before. Everybody was trying to be a nice guy up there. Nice guy. I say guy, man, woman, whatever.
Yeah.
You have to give Sam credit because Carlin got angrier. Pat Cooper got angry. A lot of people went, oh, anger is now a comedic commodity.
Right.
And that you saw it. I mean, I saw it all through the ranks. Guys who had bits. I don't know if I can cuss on here, but
sure.
I just
there's a guy. There's a guy. Like I saw guys. He had a bit. It was just a nostalgia bit. Remember the cereals we ate as kids? How sugary they were, right?
Sure.
And he had a whole bit. They're going through all. And then I see Sam Kinison makes it big, and I go into the comedy store one day. He's on stage going, "There's motherfucking Cocoa Puffs, man." I go, wow. That bit's a different tone than it was 6 months ago.
Yeah. Do you think Kinison was like, people talk about Bill Hicks, Sam Kinison? Do you think Sam took from Bill? Do you have any take on that?
Yeah, I do. You remember when Richard Lewis accused Paul Reiser of stealing from him?
Which I never got. Never.
Well,
I don't
here's
see
the
that.
thing. Both is the same situation. Both of them grew up in Baptist households. They like Reiser and Lewis grew up in Jewish households. They both grew up in the same area, Texas, New Jersey.
Right.
They came from the same water. They're gonna have some similarities of attitude.
Right.
Now they were very different. Very different. First of all, just in terms of the religious jokes, Sam was a believer. He believed in everything, all the Bible. He believed in it. He made fun of the followers of Jesus, not Jesus. Bill did not believe in any of it. He made fun of the whole myth. Right. So there was a huge difference there, and they were different. But there were times when you listen to them and they got a kind of similar rhythm. Well, sure, the Reiser and Lewis would have a kind of a similar rhythm,
Right. It makes sense. All. Yeah. Interesting. Did you know Bill well?
Very well. Very well.
Yeah.
You got this as comics. He was always complaining. Phil was a telephone junkie. He loved to get on the phone and talk. He'd call and go, "Hey, I'm watching this show. Turn on channel 12 now, right? Whatever, and watch this with him." And you'd watch the show and talk about the show while you're watching it with him. He liked to do that. But he complained about the food on the road, on these comedy clubs he was working at. I said, "Bill, stop eating at the comedy clubs, man. It's all deep fried stuff. That's why your gut's bothering you so much. You're eating all fried food." So he calls me one day, and Colleen McGar was his girlfriend, and she also managed the comedy club in West Palm. That's right.
Yeah.
And so Bill calls him and says, "Man, that's bugging me, man. I'm going to go to the hospital. Bill, go. You don't have a doctor. Just go to the emergency room." So he goes, and we're all through this day. We're talking, and the next day, and where he called me up, we talk about, we joke, we're doing jokes. Hey, they're gonna take me in. Blah, blah, blah. Then it's like, oh, they're gonna do an X-ray. They found a spot, and they got to do a biopsy, and we're doing jokes all along the way. And my wife, at one point, she goes, you guys are just doing jokes about everything. I go, that's how we deal with it. That's how
Right.
we deal with our anxiety. That's how we deal with our depression, or that's how we deal with our fear.
Right.
That's our first instinct, is to do that,
Yeah.
you know.
Laughter is the best medicine, as they
yeah,
say.
and yeah, and I think that's why. And this is just a theory, and you guys maybe help me out with this. Tell me whether I'm full of shit or not. But it's also kind of why, to me, comedies never get Academy Awards. The only one I can remember is Annie Hall, that won Academy Awards, right? And I think part of that is because Annie Hall, even though it was a comedy, it went through the full emotional process of the breakup. You know, the sadness, the nostalgia, looking back, and comedy short circuits the emotional process. You start feeling anxious or fearful, whatever. You get the laugh, and you move on to something else.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a
Wow.
good.
And so the Academy Awards are for the full emotional gamut of a drama. They feel that's more human than, that's
We
what.
need
Yeah.
we need more Annie Halls.
Yeah.
Right. Wow,
Yeah,
that's
we always
great.
quote it. Al and I did a web series where we did detectives in 1950, but we used to do Arthur, the movie Arthur, references throughout, because to me that's the funniest. That movie, every line is almost a joke, literally a joke, every line, and you can just quote it in anything and throw it out there, and it's hilarious. And of
Yeah.
course, it was dismissed with no Oscar, but a movie like that, you go, are you kidding? The performance, the movie.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
emotion.
You're not
There's
going to do better
emotion
than
in that
that
too.
one, but
Yeah,
ignored.
it's hard. The movies, comedy doesn't time travel well. You know that. It's
Right.
really tied to the generation. Twain said that. Twain said, back in his day, he said, any comedy era, 30 years at tops. So that's then. I think it's 10 years tops now. I said, because the comedy's tied to the language of the times, and the
Yeah.
attitudes and the morals of the era. Those things change, and that comedy is no longer relevant.
It's
And
funny how fast it goes too. You can have a bit
oof,
and it's killing, and then you do the bit one night and it's just
I
silent. You
know,
go,
I
doesn't
know.
anyone remember Columbia Record and Tape Club? Come on, guys, it's over. And that's how you find out. You got
That's
you,
well,
you
that's why
know.
you're enjoying the cruisers now, because that is
They
fish in the
remember
barrel,
that
man.
joke. I can do that
You're
joke. They
all
know
there.
it.
You're on the
Holland
same
America,
page.
certainly.
That's right. That's right.
Demographics, man. Demographics.
Oh yeah, 100%. I'm not writing a new act every year. Get out of here. No way.
Hey, Rich, we appreciate your time, and we'd
Yeah.
love to have you back in the future.
Yeah,
'Cause
man.
we could do this for 5 hours with you.
Yeah.
Look. I tell you, sometimes I walk through these things. I go, okay, I got through it. And today was like, really, time's up, man, because I'm really having a fucking blast.
Great.
Great, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks a
Great
lot,
to
man.
meet you again, man. And
Anytime.
thanks for doing this, Rich. Really
Anytime,
appreciate
Al.
it.
Anytime, Al. And I
Take
say,
care.
Al,
All right, what are you doing next week?
I'll be
All right,
back.
brother.
I'll see you.
All right.
All the best.
Take care, Rich.
All right, guys.
So long, Al. Have a good trip.
Don't forget to review us and rate us. It really helps.
The Talking Dicks became friends at a very young age, and the rest is history.
A feeding frenzy quickly develops.
This is the Two Owls, One Pod podcast. Thanks for tuning in.
Done.
I didn't kill my wife. I don't care.
We'll fix it in post, you son of a bitch.
All right.
Okay, so.
Subscribe. Mary. This was a horrible mistake.
Patreon.com/2 Owls 1 Pod.
If you shoot me, you won't see a cent of that money. Why?
I think it ends on that. That's beautiful.